If you want to learn to leave a man wanting more, then you came to the right place. Because today, that's exactly what we're going to be exploring. So the truth is that leaving a man wanting more is really simple to understand, but really difficult to actually implement and execute. So what we're going to do today is go through the science and psychology of some of the techniques and tactics that I can recommend to you to make pretty much any man miss you if implemented correctly. So the first thing that we really need to talk about is this concept of the Zeigarnik Effect. Now, the Zeigarnik Effect is something that I talk a lot about on this YouTube channel, and it doesn't get enough attention because it is the single most important factor for making a man want more. So what is it? Well, it's the simple fact that people remember interrupted or incomplete tasks better than completed ones. It was actually founded by a Russian psychologist named Bluma Zeigarnik. She actually found this because while she was sitting in a busy restaurant in Vienna, she noted that the waiters had better memories of unpaid orders. Once the bill was paid, however, the waiters had difficulty remembering the exact details of the orders. So, here's the best way to make a man want you more. You need to locate a high point of a conversation you're having and then exit. This is the best way to make him think about you when you're not around. Now, this can work in many different applications. It can work on text messaging, it can work over the phone, it can even work in in-person dates, based on when you end a text message conversation, based on when you end a phone call conversation, and of course, based on when you end a date. But there's an important element that people often misunderstand about the Zeigarnik Effect. They think it's just simply nothing more than a technique you're supposed to use to end something prematurely to make someone want you more. That's not the case. What you need to learn to do is to locate two important factors. To locate the flow of a conversation, but also you need to have quality conversations. So when I talk about the flow of a conversation, what am I really referring to? What am I really talking about? Well, if you really think about it, a conversation has three distinct points. It has the beginning and eventual rise to the peak of the conversation. It has the peak of the conversation in and of itself, and then it has the decline off the peak of the conversation. This is the natural flow of every single conversation that you have. Now, in some conversations, you're not going to find a peak. Some conversations never can quite get off the ground, so they kind of stay in a stagnant place. But what we're looking for here are romantic conversations with romantic partners, specifically the men you want to date you, your ex-boyfriend, whatever romantic aspirations you have with the guy, that's what we're looking towards. So generally speaking, if you are having a good vibe with the person you're talking to, the flow of the conversation will always be the same. You'll get on the phone with them, you'll talk to them, things will be going really, really great, and eventually you'll get to a point where you think to yourself, I don't want this interaction to end. I want this interaction to last forever. And so you stay on the phone, you keep talking to them the same way you're talking to them, but you run out of things to talk about. And then there just sort of isn't anything to talk about, and you're fraught with these awkward silences. No one really knows how to end a conversation because you don't want to be the one to say goodbye, and as a result, the conversation stagnates. This is the flow of the conversation. Once you can understand the flow of the conversation, you need to locate the high point of the conversation. But locating the high point is notoriously difficult because it's different for each and every conversation. Sometimes a high point in a great conversation will be easy to locate. It's the point of the conversation that you don't want the conversation to actually end. Sometimes it's notoriously difficult to locate. What if there is no high point? What if the conversation is just stagnant? Well, it becomes very hard to do the Zeigarnik Effect. So here's our trick for helping you locate the high point. You need to have what we call quality conversations. Real quick, I want to say that if you're new to this YouTube channel or you're trying to figure out what you should be doing to get your ex back and you're trying to learn if you even have a chance in your specific circumstance, probably the smartest thing for you to do is actually stop by our website, www.exboyfriendrecovery.com, or take our X Recovery Chances quiz that can be found at exboyfriendrecovery.com. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, taking that free quiz is super easy to do. All you have to simply do is look in the description link below this YouTube video and click on the link you see there. It will take you directly to the quiz where you can fill it out and get an easy answer on what you should be doing going forward and overall what your chances look like in your specific situation. All right, so let's get you back to the video. If you have a quality conversation with the guy that you want to fall for you, generally speaking, you will create that flow, that gradual build to a high point, the high point, and the gradual come off the high point. The only way to do that is to have quality conversations. And the only way to have quality conversations is to learn how to have more meaningful conversations. Now, what is a meaningful conversation? Well, it's a conversation that you have with someone that helps them know a little bit about what you stand for and helps you know a little bit about what they stand for. It's also the type of conversation you think about days later because it was so invigorating. So, what is the best way to have a meaningful conversation? Well, what you want to do is stop asking what and instead start asking why. How do you do that? What is that all about? Most people, when they have a conversation, they talk about surface level areas. They only talk or only feel comfortable talking about this because they're afraid of opening up. They're afraid of making themselves vulnerable. But what if I were to tell you that there is a trick you can use to make the person you're talking to become more vulnerable first before you have to go down to those depths? And all you have to say or ask is one simple question: why? Let's say you're getting to know a guy and you're interested in what kind of music he's interested in. He tells you he's interested in country music. You, of course, will say, well, what are your favorite artists? It's a what question. He'll answer who his favorite artists are. I know nothing about country music, so he'll just pull some random country music guy out or country music gal out and talk about them. And that's the end of the conversation. You move on to the next topic. Instead, what's a lot more interesting and what can get down to the very essence of his soul and make you set apart from all the other women is simply asking why. Why do you love country music so much? Because it forces him to actually think and give you a detailed, open-ended answer. Something that you can build off of, that you can dig down deeper into. And when you have those types of conversations, meaning gets created. And when meaning gets created, quality happens. And when quality happens, the flow of the conversation goes up and eventually the two of you start connecting. And there's a point where you think to yourself, I don't want this conversation to end. Of course, the irony here is that it's exactly at this point of the conversation that you have to end the conversation. You've had that eventual build towards the high point. You've located the high point, but the Zeigarnik Effect teaches us that you need to end a conversation at the high point. Why? Because that's what will make him think about you when you're not around. That's what will make him want to reach out to you to have another meaningful conversation like this. Now, here's a little bit of a tip. Don't just end a conversation abruptly. Think of a legitimate reason for why you want to end the conversation and be clever about it. Maybe your work needs you now. Maybe your dog needs you now. Maybe you have some appointment that you need to focus on and end the conversation there. Sometimes you can pretend your phone battery died. That's a little bit more direct, but there's a lot of different ways to end the conversation. When should you end the conversation? Well, we know it should be at the high point, but how long do you stay at that high point, basking in its glow before you end the conversation? Generally speaking, I think probably the best place to end is the tipping point of when the high point begins to lose momentum and it starts to go down and down. You don't want to catch it on a falling knife, so to speak. You want to catch it right at the precipice of when it's about to curve and the conversation quality is about to go down. That is the point you should end out. Of course, most of our clients have no clue when this is going to happen because they have no clue about it. And I have no clue about it. So we often will just tell them, hey, survive in the high point a little bit and then just end the conversation at the high point because it's easier. And what is cool about this is you get all sorts of really positive benefits from doing this. Not only will it make him want you more, not only will it leave him wanting more, but all of a sudden, if you consistently do this with all areas or methods of communication, you're ending conversations first, you'll find he starts reaching out to you more.